Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to Buckeye Politics. It's me, your favorite Ohioan. So, we're going to talk about the 2022 Oregon Gubernatorial election, and just going to say right off the bat that this is an absolute shit show. This is just one of the most crazy elections I have ever seen. There are so many different candidates running. There are 20 Republicans, 15 Democrats, and several third-party members, including Constitution Party and a very popular former, so I believe she was a state senator or state representative who's running as an independent. And also, just to throw it all in there, the former House Majority and former House Minority Leader have announced their candidacies. So this is just crazy. This is just crazy. This election in general. So I just want to talk about this election. And at first I thought it was crazy, and I thought, and yeah, it looks kind of crazy, it looks kind of nuts, but it's probably going to be like a very narrow Democrat victory. It had probably likely D. But the more I look into this race, the more I think, the Republican Party might have a real shot at flipping this race. And here's why. So let's go down. These are the three major Democratic candidates: former House Speaker Tina Kotek, the State Treasurer Tobias Reed, and Cabinet Maker Patrick Starnes. And there are a whole bunch of other people running, but these are the main three. If we go down, I'm going to try to find some polls, which we have only really one, which was conducted just a few weeks ago, which shows that Tina Kotek, the former House Majority Leader, currently winning with 25% of the votes. Tobias Reed's 20%, and this makes sense. Honestly, I mean, she probably has the most name recognition, and from what I've read about her, she's a relatively progressive style, but she also has some appeal to more moderate Democrats, so it does make sense that she would be winning in the polling. So I do expect Tina Kotek to probably be the Democratic nominee. She reminds me a lot of the current governor, Kate Brown. She's, like, pretty progressive, but also has some slightly more moderate Democrat tendencies. But yeah, that's really all I said about the Democrats. Looking at the Republicans, though, we have also a whole bunch of people running, including former state representatives, mayors, general contractors, entrepreneurs. We basically have everyone thrown in there. And we also have a bunch of people that withdrew and a bunch of people that declined. So, pretty interesting just to look at. But let's go down. Let's look at the polling for the Republican race. Both of these show that Bud Pierce leading in the race. Bud Pierce is an oncologist. I don't even know what the hell that means, but he's an oncologist. And he seems pretty solid on the issues. I mean, if you look down here, he's endorsed by the Oregon Right to Life PAC, and he's also endorsed by a police chief. So he seems to me, from what I've read from his campaign as well, just like a pretty generic Republican. He's nothing too special. So he's a pretty much generic Republican. The person in second place, he was Christine Drazen. She is a former state representative. Sure, her campaign looks a little bit more populist, a little bit more America first. She certainly seems better on the issues than Bud Pierce. So I'd really take either one of them, but I probably would prefer Christine Drazen to Bud Pierce. She does seem a little bit more America first, but really both of them, it's probably going to be Bud Pierce that's the nominee. So I mean, just look at this though. I just think this is so many candidates. I just think it's kind of funny. And then we also have to look at the independent candidates, and this is where it gets interesting, in my opinion, because we have all these like random independent parties. The Constitution Party has their nominee, who is a refrigerator repair technician, Paul Romero. Like, that is a badass title, refrigerator repair technician. Like, that's pretty epic, not gonna lie. Paul Romero, the refrigerator repair technician. Seems like an absolute Chad from the Constitution Party, but we're gonna be focusing on Betsy Johnson, who's a former state senator, and that's because look at all these endorsements. And not only that, but I made a video about her. But Betsy Johnson, she has a lot of appeal to progressive types, as well as certain like kind of conservative type appeal people. I believe she'll take away mostly the progressive vote because she is very progressive on social issues. She's kind of weird. I talked about this a lot in my other video on her. Maybe I'll link it in the description, but you can go back and watch it. But Betsy Johnson is very weird on the issues. She's like socially progressive. She's like completely pro LGBTQ. She's like completely pro abortion. She like wants there to be zero limits on abortion. But she also supports tax cuts and tax incentives for having kids and getting married. She's also pro-union. She's also relatively fiscally populist in terms of, which kind of makes sense from a progressive standpoint. But she's very weird politically. And I believe that that's actually a good thing, because I think she's going to take away a lot of the progressive vote. And if you look at Oregon, really, most of the Democrats in Oregon are relatively progressive, which is why I said a while ago, back in like March, that Betsy Johnson would probably take away a lot of the progressive vote, and leading to possibly a very narrow Republican victory. Now, I didn't have that happening at the time, but now I seriously think that might happen. If we go down here and look at polling, we just have hypotheticals. These races so lean to likely D, but look at this. DHM Research, generic Republican 26%, generic Democrat 16%, generic Independent 21%. We are already seeing that Betsy Johnson is splitting the vote between the Democrats, because the vast majority of these people, I would assume, would vote Democratic, considering the fact that Betsy Johnson is a lot more liberal on social issues. And I mean, really, the only issue she's even conservative on is like family tax incentives, and even then, to your average Republican, that's probably not a big deal. Like to me, and like more America First style Republicans, it's a big deal. But your average, just like Oregon's a pretty boomer-con state in terms of the Republicans. There's not a lot of populists. I mean, maybe some parts of like there are a lot of working-class blue-collar voters outside of Portland, and those people might be breaking for her anyway. But a lot of those people vote Democratic. They're like Bernie Bros who like kind of like Trump. They're very weird politically. But that's besides the point. The point is the fact that we are already seeing Betsy Johnson splitting the vote based on this poll, which was done by DHM Research back in February, showing. And it was done back in February, but they never actually put it up until like now. So, Betsy Johnson with 21% of the vote, the generic Democrat with 16% of the vote, the generic Republican with 26% of the vote. And that's not all. We also have this poll, which was a generic Republican at 47%, a generic Democrat at 29%. Now, I question this poll a little bit. I don't think this is completely accurate, in my opinion. I'm pretty iffy. I think that this is a relatively poorly conducted poll. I mean, this one actually seems pretty good, but they're basically the same poll, but that's the point. But I think what we're seeing is that I think for this poll, it's obvious that these people, that the more progressive types, are voting and relatively heavily for Betsy Johnson, giving her 21%, the generic Democrat with 16%, and the Republicans at 26%, which is pretty even. You look at this, the Republicans at 22%. Here they were at 31%. So the Republicans are in the mid 20s, which this makes sense. So this poll I buy, and this is interesting to see because the Democrat vote is being split. And I think that this also applies to this poll, because when you kind of add the numbers back in, I think a lot of and they probably oversampled Republicans maybe a little bit for this poll. But if you think about the votes being split, let's see, 21, 16, 29%, I think a lot of these people who are undecided maybe actually used to be supporting Betsy Johnson, or maybe vice versa. I'm not really sure, so I would kind of disregard this poll. But this poll, I think, is the biggest thing. This right here, the generic Republican versus generic Democrat versus generic Independent, because it shows that the Democratic vote and progressive vote especially is being split by Betsy Johnson. And the Republicans have the lead. So quite frankly, I can easily see the GOP winning this race at this point. I think that Oregon, I used to say, nah, red Oregon, it's a meme, nah. But honestly, after seeing this poll here, seeing how many endorsements Betsy Johnson has received, and just looking a little bit more deeper into the race, I could seriously see the GOP possibly flipping the Oregon gubernatorial election this fall, depending on the size of the red wave, how much of the vote Betsy Johnson actually takes away. Like this one, she only takes away 11%, which in that case, I think the Democrats will probably hang on. But if Betsy Johnson gets 20% of the vote, then then the Republicans are probably gonna win. So with that, thank you for watching this quick little video on the Oregon gubernatorial election. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, be sure to like and subscribe for more.